This is one of the bones of Garriga Titan, and it lived in France about 75 to 80 million years ago. The name refers to kind of a scrubland that you find in Mediterranean-style biomes. So, picture around Utah, we're kind of Mediterranean-style, Greece, Italy, same kind of climate. And so here's a long-necked dinosaur that was living in kind of this scrubby, dry area, but apparently they did pretty well there. This guy's also not terribly big. The biggest individual that they found would have been about 40 to 50 feet, and that would have been a time when France would have been an island, so you might have a little bit of isomorphism going on there. So, this is Concynathus, and this is all we have of Concynathus. A lot of them are really fragmentary, but you can get away with naming a new dinosaur like this if it has enough of these weird features. And you can see kind of this groove here, some odd features of the teeth, even though we don't really have the teeth. Got a little one kind of poking out there at the back, but so not much to say about this guy, but it is a relative of Velociraptor, and so probably had kind of a coyote-like approach to life, or kind of like a fox, depending on how big it actually was. But it's really hard to tell from just a dentary. Speaking of dentaries, they're the very first dinosaur to be named as, in scientific literature, I guess I should say, Megalosaurus is also known from a dentary. But it's such a unique dentary that it's still a valid taxon, even over 150 years later. So, you get the right part, you're good to go. You just can't say much about your dinosaur that you found. Here's another one that has a really metal name, but as you can see, this guy really deserves it. It's called Muculcan, and that's Mapuche for the one who causes fear. It's known mostly from just the skull and then a few other bits. And it's a member of the Abelisaur family. Carnotaurus, right back behind me here, is another member of that family. And this guy comes from the late Cretaceous of Argentina, so it would have lived at about the same time. But Carnotaurus is really, really specialized. It did one thing really, really well. This guy either had a different specialization or was maybe a little bit more of a generalist. Not all Abelisaurs had those. Some of them did. Carnotaurus definitely won. My Youngosaurus had kind of a weird bump. It's not like a true horn. And you would see some facial ornamentation on other Abelisaurs. This is one of the ones that doesn't have bony projections, but it has pretty roughened areas of the bone that indicate that it would have had some really gnarly looking keratinized skin. So these guys had really armored faces because they were meat-eating dinosaurs. It's nice to have a face. If you're going to be biting stuff that's going to be fighting back, you want some armor on that face. Oh, one thing about Muculcan that I forgot, it had these odd chambers, sinuses kind of back in the ear area, and that indicates that it might have had unusually good hearing for its group. Okay, this is Menophyceratops, and this is one of the really early ceratopsids. Now, we have ceratopsids that go all the way back into the Jurassic. Ones that are in the Jurassic walked along on two legs and didn't have quite as crazy headgear, although some of them had some really gnarly cheekbones. But those are the ceratopsians. Once you get into the ceratopsids, in North America for the most part, that's when they get bigger down on all fours and start getting kind of this crazy headgear. So this one's one of the oldest of the centrosaurines, or the short-frilled ceratopsians. And when they started out, for whatever reason, they had brow horns, kind of like the chasmosaurines, which would be the other group of ceratopsids. The chasmosaurines had these really long frills and long brow horns, but not much of a nose horn. So that seems to be something that we do have evidence that they would be fighting, and it's easier to do that with brow horns than with a nose horn. With the nose horns, they might have been doing that because they were trying to hurt each other. The Centrosaurians might have ended up being the more aggressive, scarier kinds, even though they were smaller than some of the Chasmosaurians. The Chasmosaurians might have just tried to scare you away first before fighting. And it seems like that was kind of the way that things started out for the Centrosaurians, but then they got nasty about things. So, really cool little dinosaur. The tan parts are the bits that were preserved, and so we got a fair amount of it. But it's not terribly big, being one of the earlier members of the group. It would have been about only 15 feet long, so it wouldn't have gotten too much longer than what you're seeing here on the screen right now. I don't know how to feel about the name for this particular animal. It's called Ninja Titan. The Ninja Giant. Now, this was reported in a South American journal, and I know I'm going to butcher the name of it. It's like, I just need to read it, I guess. Anyway, so it's behind a paywall, and I don't have a subscription to it, so I don't have much information on this guy, and I have no idea why they called it Ninja Titan. The paper also talks a lot about it possibly being the oldest of the titanosaurs, but their results also had it placed like all along the titanosaur family line, and I'm not entirely sure exactly how old it is, so yeah, this guy's kind of mysterious, and I hope that I can find a copy of the paper so that I can see the details of, you know, what they're trying to describe here. The funny thing is that if this does turn out to be the oldest of the titanosaurs, when we look at the phylogenetic analysis, which is our attempt to kind of place it in evolutionary history, it's not the most basal. So this guy might be the oldest one that we know of, but according to the features of its bones, it's telling us that there were titanosaurs before it that we should expect to see, if we can find no fossils.